My name is Clifford Shiflett. Mr. Chairman, members of the council, fellow residents, I appreciate the opportunity to speak this afternoon. I'm speaking about the Confederate monument. To explain my profile, my name is Clifford Shiflett, 125 Carlin Drive, Anderson, South Carolina. I was educated in the public schools here in Anderson. I went to Anderson College and graduated from Clemson in 1980. I served my country for 6 years. My family history came from Virginia to Georgia, and then in about 1920 we immigrated across the Savannah River to Anderson. So we've lived here roughly 100 years. I want my history, my heritage that sits in the downtown square of this town left alone. The Heritage Act of South Carolina was put in place to protect things like that, and I want them left alone. There's some talk about a petition with thousands of signatures, and if that's just a bunch of names on a list, then I want a copy of the list, and I want the name and address, and I want to confirm every name on there to see if they're an Anderson County resident or property owner. I think if they want to make that a public document, that I should get a copy if I want one. And we should have nobody voting outside of Anderson County signing that petition. It shouldn't mean anything. I've talked to people in Columbia, they even signed. I appreciate the time. There's some talk about a statue for Mr. Bozeman because he was from Anderson and a famous actor. If they want a statue like that, fine, put one somewhere. You can hide it behind the behavioral science building like you did the monument for our veterans. Here we are stuck behind a building over there, and people can't even come to town to find a thing. And so to take that Confederate monument down and put Bozeman's name there is wrong. It's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Next speaker is Rossi Meadows.
Hello, my name is Rossi Meadows, and I'm from Greenville, but I am a South Carolina historian from the Revolution War up to about World War II. So hello, my name's Rossi Meadows. I'm a sixth-generation South Carolinian and one of the 70 million Americans descended from a Confederate soldier. I'm a retired public school teacher and football coach. As a coach, we study film of our opponents to figure out their game plan. I would recommend to everyone to study Saul Alinsky's book, The Rules for Radicals. He was a professor at the University of Chicago and a believer in Karl Marx's push for socialism. Rule number 13, pick a target, freeze it, personalize it, and then polarize it. Karl Marx believed that religion has to be destroyed before socialism can take hold. Remember when we used to pray before high school football games? Karl Marx said you have to destroy the culture and the history of the people before you can destroy their religion. These neo-Marxists who are attacking Confederate war memorials are also attacking other American monuments to destroy our history. These neo-Marxists are just puppets. Look deeper to see who the real puppet master really is. Folks, we've got their playbook. We know what it is. These Confederate war memorials are just a low-hanging fruit. People, folks, we Christians better get ready. It's coming. Thank you for your time.
I was born and raised here in Anderson, South Carolina. I served as a United Methodist minister for my professional career, and I am now back in Anderson, retired and living on Lake Hartwell, 5016 Cross Point, Anderson, South Carolina. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to the item number 6, presentation of relocation of the Confederate monument. During my years of growing up in Anderson, I I'm sorry that I have to admit that I was very racially prejudiced. It took quite a bit of change in my life for me to come to the point where I felt that I could no longer keep division, attitudes that I had held toward people who had skin color different from my own. When that did happen, I was deeply grateful. And it moved me to spend the rest of my life, I hope many people would say, trying to rectify that view and to create a country, a state, a city where the views and beliefs and rights of all people would be recognized. I have looked at the monument in downtown Anderson that we are thinking about relocating. And I realized not only from my own personal change, but from the statements of many of my brothers and sisters of all different races and colors, that there's a different way of looking at that monument than the one I held early in my life. I think that monument needs to be moved so that we as Andersonians and those who would join us across the state and nation might look toward a day where we can all feel that those things that find physical representation in our community are not offensive to some who now enjoy far more rights than they did when I was growing up here in Anderson, but yet need to know that we, in this day and time, want anything that appears as a physical monument in our city to represent all of us and all of our rights. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, Cindy, gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to be here and speak to you. I do appreciate that. I'll start off by briefly telling you I'm opposed to this face mask wearing ordinance. I think it's unconstitutional. But the reason I came down here this afternoon is item 6 on your agenda. My great-great-grandpappy fought for the Confederacy from Manassas to the day we surrendered Vicksburg, and he became a prisoner of war. When he was paroled, he went back to Arkansas and raised cotton and 10 children, one of whom became my great-grandpappy. And 3 of his grandsons fought for the United States of America in World War II, one of them losing his life in defense of this nation. That's what the monument in front of the courthouse means to me. Now, 20 years ago, when we took the Confederate flag off the State House and put it at the Soldiers' Monument, they worked out a deal. They said, well, we're going to pass a law and say that we're not ever going to take down another flag or monument that represents the culture and heritage of the state anymore, and we'll leave the status quo as it was once they moved that flag. It's against the state law, gentlemen, for y'all to move that monument. And I mean no disrespect, but if you do, I will sue you, and some of you are good friends of mine. I thank you for hearing from me, and I'll believe it and talk to others, and I hope to get a chance to talk to some of you one-on-one. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'm here on behalf of my daughter, who is 15 years old and a sophomore at Hannah High School. My name is Taline Kiefer. I'm a resident of the city of Anderson. After George Floyd's death, we were enjoying our downtown like we always do, but this time we went up to the Confederate monument, and she read the plaque. She read it out loud, and it was the first time either one of us had read it out loud. And the meaning meant something deeper than we ever realized after George Floyd's death. And I will read it to you now. Confederate monument, which stands in the heart of downtown Anderson, has been, let's just read this subscription. The world shall yet decide, in truth's clear, far-off light, that the soldiers who wore the gray and died with Lee were in the right. And when she read it out loud, I asked her how she felt about that. And she said she felt sad. And she felt that our city was living in a past and not including all the marvelous diversity that we have living here, residents today. And then she said it made her more sad about how it would make her black brothers and sisters and students at her school. And I am coming here today for her. She can't be here, and all the kids of the future can't be here because they are in school, and we're making a decision on how we want them to feel when they come into our city, their downtown. And I think it's time to make a change that shows the diversity, includes every resident of our great city. It's time to move forward. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, County Council. Thank you for letting me speak this afternoon. Cindy, good to see you today. My name is Wayne Whitfield again. I'm from Anderson County. Lived in Anderson County all my life. I'm a retired Marine. I spent a year in Vietnam in a rifle company. And I've got a great uncle who was captured after the Battle of Gettysburg. And he was sent to a Yankee prison up on the Jersey Shore. And he died there about a year later, and he's buried with 3,000 Confederate soldiers in a mass grave. We found out this information because my uncle went to the New Jersey Shore in an attempt to retrieve his remains, and they said that's impossible, so we can't get his remains. He said he's buried with 3,000 men. My point is this. These monuments were put up all around the southeast in these towns for one reason primarily, and that was to honor the men, Southern men, who never came home. Most of them were buried in mass graves on battlefields and never had the privilege of a funeral back home. So these monuments represent those men who never came home. I think that monument's in the right place. I hope to God it's never moved. Now, this is not a perfect world we live in. We know that. And we're not trying to create a utopia here. We can't do that either because of our own condition. But I hope and pray that that thing remains. If it was wrong to put it up 120 years ago, it'd be wrong now. It wasn't wrong to put it up then because they put it up to honor those men that gave their lives for this state and for the Southeast, and I appreciate you letting me speak.
Next speaker is Nelson Waller.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you for all the good things that you do involved in running the county. I know it's a huge job, and I know it's a responsibility to become a councilman. However, if it becomes a matter of your special agenda or somebody else's special values or program that you're serving instead of the public, something's radically wrong there, and I fear that's what's going on here. There is no such thing as a monument or a symbol that represents everybody. Let me tell you something. If you put up a statue of a TV star, any TV star of any race, it is not going to represent me because I despise modern TV and what it's doing in terms of public morals and values. The content is decadent beyond belief. I have here the agenda from your website. May I ask why this meeting is not on it? It says there's another one on the 17th. Is that the case? Here we have a map of part of the town containing Washington Street and Jefferson Avenue, including the Jefferson Avenue Park. Are you prepared to change the names of everything that existed before the Civil Rights era? Because that's where this political correctness is going. If you change one, well, you take the monument down, well, then the rationale becomes, well, you did this for us, you have to do this to be consistent here. Hey, we're offended, we're still offended. This thing over here is racist. It's a slippery slope. Please do not go anywhere near it. Why do they want the monument down? Because they call it racist. There is nothing racist about it. As I said before, it stands for Andersonians of every color of the period of time who in any way fought against the Yankee onslaught, which was comparable to the communist invasion of Hungary in 1956. I have a petition here for you. It is sealed, symbolically representing our desire for you to keep this information, be discreet with it. We don't need cancel culture going after the signers. There aren't many names on it, but it's what we have the resources to collect. We passed over 1,000 petitions out amongst our fellow citizens. I wrote to each one of you. Mr. Graham did not receive his, but I brought it today for him and gave it to Lacey, asking your stand on the monument issue. Is there a reason that none of you replied? Until I do get a reply, I'm going to assume that you, as well as the city council and the legislators are involved, are colluding against us.
Next speaker is Paul Harrison. You don't need to speak. Next speaker is Kristen White.
Good afternoon. Thank you for letting me speak today. I did not prepare for this because I didn't know it was an opportunity to speak. Today, I'm not coming to you with scare tactics or propagating cancel culture. We have canceled much culture in our history, black culture. I come to you today because I have brown children. I came to Anderson because I felt like this was a very diversified county. I came here to help give my children a chance to thrive and to grow, and for the most part they have. They have experienced some things in this county, in the churches in the county, and in the county in general, that have been racist. However, we have not allowed that to dampen our spirits, our hope, our projections for the future. I have a job where I go into the courthouse on many occasions. For about 3 years, I frequented the courthouse for work. I saw the statue and thought, okay, interesting, statue outside. Never thought much about it. Until one day I had some time in between hearings. And I walked over to that statue, and what I read on that statue broke my heart. Broke my heart for my children and their children and my black brothers and sisters that live in this town. There is no way that anyone can tell me that it's okay to have a statue in front of the county courthouse that is to stand for liberty and justice for all of our people, that says that Lee was right and the South should have won. We need to move. We need to grow. We do not have to destroy things in order to do that. We have already destroyed. It's time to rebuild. It's okay to change. It's time to change. If anyone wonders what the statue, we talked about what it says. Someone read for us what it says, but I want to just briefly tell you that the likeness of the image is William Wirt Humphreys. He did not die in the war. He came back and lived a pretty much prosperous life, but I want to share with you a quote from Mr. Humphreys. He was a pastor in this area, I do believe. For ages to come, slavery as it now exists must be profitable and beneficial in the cotton states. Yet, if not sooner, the remaining slave states must unite with us in a few years, and it is wise and proper to devise means whereby we can make their union perpetual and place a check upon the growth of abolition sentiment in their borders. That is who we celebrate in our town center. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn, Council, for allowing me to speak today. I'm Luciana Strather, and I live at 2208 East North Avenue, and I'd like to speak on item 6. My fellow Andersonians, I have lived in Anderson for most of my life, and the Confederate monument downtown has always embarrassed me. Most obviously, this monument is un-American. The Confederacy was a legally separate nation from the United States and was defeated in the American Civil War. The Confederate dead memorialized in this monument are the defeated enemies of the United States and should not be glorified as heroes. For those who say that their heritage lies with these men, I argue that this is a shameful heritage. These men fought to keep the institution of slavery, which is the deepest and most shameful aspect of American history and an example of the worst inhumanity in the world, in the history of the world. Slavery violates the God-given dignity of every human person and has been a source of intergenerational oppression and trauma in our country for over 400 years. The preservation of this unchristian system is not something that anyone should be proud to claim as their heritage. And this monument to slavery's defenders and the enemies of our great nation is an embarrassment to our country. Among other economic issues, the Confederacy fought primarily to keep the institution of slavery in the United States. The descendants of the people owned by these Confederate dead continue to live in our country today. The black population of Anderson should not be further tormented with a monument glorifying the oppressive masters of their ancestors. Additionally, this monument was not erected until 1901, over 30 years after the defeat of the Confederacy. Statues like this one were often used to proclaim public opposition to the civil rights movement, which sought equal opportunity and an end to racist treatment for African Americans. Therefore, this monument was likely not erected as a memorial to the family members of the Andersonians who died fighting against the United States, but as a symbol of white supremacy and opposition to equality for Black Americans in this town. For those who claim this monument is a piece of history and should not be removed, I argue that monuments themselves are symbols of community values rather than sources of history. Sources of history include community institutions such as the Anderson County Library or the Anderson County Museum, which themselves are both wonderful places to which we can relocate this monument. Monuments and statues are a symbol of what a community upholds as most important to its citizens. In its place, I recommend erecting a statue to the many brave men and women of Anderson who have fought to defend our freedoms as Americans. The veterans of Anderson County, including Medal of Honor and Purple Heart recipient Freddie Stowers, best exemplify the ideals of patriotism and bravery that we should all honor as Americans.
Time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I'm speaking on the agenda for the item 6.
Item 6.
Yeah, so should I wait or continue?
You can speak now, Mr. Grant. You got 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for your time and consideration. My name is Matthew Cogswell, and my wife Sarah and I have been residents of Anderson for about 5 years after I accepted the position of Next Generation Pastor at Hope Fellowship Church. And since moving here, we have been proud to call Anderson home. We have met some incredible people we have called family and love the small town atmosphere filled with decent, hardworking people. Sadly, when I walk downtown, I don't see that reflected by the Confederate monument located in front of the courthouse in the heart of the city. Instead, what's communicated to me and my family is that I am less than because of the color of my skin. You might ask, how did I reach this conclusion? It's after reading the description on the side of the statue that says, "The world shall yet decide in truth's far-off light that the soldiers who wore the gray and died with Lee were in the right." Now, what right is that? What's the main issue? you talk about what they were talking here. I look no further than Alexander Stephens, the VP of the Confederacy, who wrote in 1861, after discussing why the old Union would split and why they would indeed fight, he said, quote, "Our foundations are laid, its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race is his natural and normal condition." That's why I'm proposing the relocation of this monument. I have no political slant. I have no axe to grind against the men that have fought and died, the sons, the fathers of the gentlemen that they were speaking earlier. I think they should be remembered. I just don't believe that this monument should be glorified in the center of my city. I believe that there simply should be more to reflect the beautiful, hardworking people of Anderson. That includes the 31% of African Americans that also live here. With that, I will pass it on to Sam, who and Danny Wagner are individuals I've been working with as we've been championing this cause as he speaks about this agenda. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, no one else has signed up at this point.
We'll be moving on then. Item
Mr.
number-
Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
may I have a point of privilege, please?
Yes, ma'am.
We've been hearing very emotional pleas on a matter of historical monument. And as Mr. Wooten so articulately pointed out, you're speaking to the wrong venue, the wrong level of government. We have a State Heritage Act. If you want to work together and come to a harmonious conclusion, why don't we add some monuments downtown and maybe fill out the history here? But taking a monument out is not our choice. That's the state government and the state law. And I'm just very concerned that we're spinning our wheels and not accomplishing anything when I've already offered to put up a little money if we want to maybe do a monument to Dr. Beatrice Thompson, who's done more for human relations in this county, and a lot of other historical people living and past. Why don't we do that? You have very few obstacles to putting more monuments downtown, but you have a massive one to remove one. And I hope we can go forward and work in that spirit, in that direction. Thank you.
Moving on to item, resolutions.